This dude is really beginning to get on my fucking nerves, man. He's really beginning to get on my fucking nerves when you like follow his history and listen to his comments post game revolving basketball in general. You look at his actions. You see the traits of a no account person that always pushes the blame on other people, a choke artist, and a bit of a scoundrel, man, and a snake. Uh, yeah, I don't know this guy personally, and I could be wrong in some instances. When I read people, but I like to think that generally speaking, when I observe people in public over a period of time, I think I'm about right 99% of the time in my assessment of these people. Okay. So so recently he was on the podcast, All the Smoke, right? And basically, when it came to the problems that the Clippers had last year, he put the blame, he didn't say his name, but he put the blame on former Clippers coach Doc Rivers. Okay. So he basically talked about how they never made any adjustments. You know, let me get his exact quote. Quote, during that whole process, we never worked on adjustments. We never worked on what to do differently. Just literally the same shit happening over and over again. Okay. He said, we didn't practice during the whole year. That's hard to do when you're putting a fresh group of guys together because the problems you have during games, those shits can get ironed out in practice. When it happened during games, it's going to rub a little differently. It's hard to come back from that, especially during the playoffs. And that's just kind of how we went about it after stuff started unfolding and unraveling. Okay, now look, is there truth to what he's saying? Absolutely. We've talked about how Doc Rivers is an overrated coach and he doesn't make adjustments, and that one lone title that he has, what I'm saying, with the Boston Celtics was pretty much the product of having what was then a pretty damn near super team. Okay, okay, and the talent overwhelmed his, or the talent made up for his mediocre coaching. Okay, that happens at sometimes. I've made this comparison a lot of times. Billy Cunningham, great player, Hall of Fame caliber player, mediocre coach. All right, his mediocre coaching cost the Sixers a couple of titles. They won in '83 in spite of his mediocre coaching because they did have a super team that year with prime Moses Malone, Julius Erving still close to his prime, Andrew Toney, who would be in the Hall of Fame wasn't for his foot injuries. You know what I'm saying? Bobby Jones and all those other guys on that team, and Maurice Cheeks. Um, so look, yeah, he's right in this assessment, but part of the problem too is when you have two players, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and I have to keep saying this, man. I was fooled by Kawhi Leonard to an extent. Don't get me wrong, he does have a problem with his knee. But when you listen and read about some of the things that were going on, many of the players did feel like they were getting preferential treatment. Other guys had to practice, and these guys didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Especially Leonard, I guess. Um, it kind of hurts chemistry when you have a guy that isn't capable of playing back to backs, or two guys that's not playing back to backs, or guys that aren't playing with each other. Now that's not Doc Rivers' fault. You only had the projected starting lineup playing what 13 games together during the regular season, or 15 games during the regular season. It wasn't a lot of games, so that would hurt chemistry. But the thing that really gets me about Paul George is when he talks about how, you know, Doc Rivers didn't use him right. Basically, using him as a 3-point shooter. When he has, I guess he's saying he has a more multifaceted game than that. Well, I mean, okay, to an extent, maybe there's truth to that too. But this is the thing. I saw a stat that said that 33% of his buckets, I think, came off of pick and roll, which is a career high for him. So that doesn't sound like a guy that's squarely just a 3-point specialist. Okay. Also, I call bullshit on this because if you've been watching Paul George's career ever since he had that devastating injury, Paul George has been more and more of a 3-point shooter. If I recall correctly, when he was with OKC, okay, when he was at one point a top 2 or 3 MVP candidate until the injuries to his shoulders, I think it was, right? He was bombing away from three. I remember him taking something like 8 threes a game. So you were a 3-point specialist to an extent when you were with OKC. So if they're seeing you, that's what your game is. You had the injury, so maybe you're a guy that don't want to drive the basket as much. Most guys that get older, especially to have a major injury like that, they become more of a jump shooter. If we watch Paul George's game, this isn't a guy that driving to the basket all the time, a slasher. He's more of he does do it on occasion, but he's more of a jump shooter. Is he not? So what the fuck is he talking about? The thing that pisses me off about Paul George, this is the truth. He's a fucking excuse maker. Okay? He's an excuse maker. He's a fucking borderline fraud, and he's a scoundrel. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not even going to go too much into the scoundrel aspect of it because it doesn't really pertain to basketball. But all I'm going to say is Google Roy Hibbert and Paul George, and you'll see what caused their problems there. Google Paul George and Doc Rivers' daughter, and you'll see what type of person this guy is to an extent. Okay, but when it comes to basketball, the one time this guy was playing well, and shout out to 78 Sports TV, my boy, because he is the one that made this observation, and it's so true. It's funny how the one time when he was playing well, right, lights out basketball, was before he got hurt during the 2018-19 season, playing with Russ, a guy that supposedly you can't win with, right? Had them all the way to the third ranking in the Western Conference. Now, we knew they weren't going to finish that well. But the fact that they were third, that team, but Russ, supposedly you can't win with Russ. You can't, you know. But the reason I think Paul George played so well is because he knew that playing with Russell Westbrook, you're never going to get the blame. When shit goes wrong, you're never going to get the blame playing with Russell Westbrook. The media automatically blames him for everything. And this is how it went. When Paul George was averaging at one point 29 points a game during that point of the season, and during that stretch, he was averaging like 32, 33 points a game for that 3-month stretch. I think it was 33 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. He was also at one point a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He was playing lights out basketball, 47-point triple doubles, game winners left and right. Remember when he was with the Pacers, he had a stretch, I think, where he went 0 for 14 with game winners, shooting air balls and bricking. You know what I'm saying? Couldn't even find the rim. Matter of fact, I think his last shot with the Pacers was an air ball in the playoffs against LeBron James, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, He was playing lights out basketball. What did the media say? Well, Paul George has to do everything. You know, Russ, he's only averaging 20 points a game. You know, he needs some help offensively. I'm like, well, wait a minute, man. You guys say that Russ shoots too much. Now he's taking a step back and letting Paul George be the focal point of offense. And now, Russ isn't helping out offensively. Then when Paul George got hurt and Russ had to shoot the ball more, now it's, oh well, here goes Russ bricking everywhere again. You know, why is he shooting so much? He's selfish. I'm like, this guy can't win, man. You know what I'm saying? Russ just can't win when it comes to popular opinion and public opinion. But funny how when the pressure gets to Paul George, he shoots like that. Remember that super fucking air ball that he shot in Game 7 when they were in the process of blowing that 3-1 lead against Denver? That air ball that I think hit the side of the backboard. He was what? Like, that's what you call choking. I don't think Doc Rivers had anything to do with you choking wide open threes and wide open layups and 15 footers. That's you. That's you. Okay? You shooting under 40% for the season. That had nothing to do with Doc Rivers. That's you. Okay? And this is the thing about adjustments. Ray Allen, okay, was the man in Seattle. Ray Allen, if you remember Ray Allen when he was at Seattle, not only did he shoot threes, but he also would occasionally take it to the basket. Ask Tracy McGrady. He could still slash. He mixed it up mid range, all that shit, right? But when he went to Boston, he did primarily become a 3-point specialist and a reduced role. He was generally third in the offense, but he sacrificed his game for the betterment of the team because the goal was to win a championship. Despite the fact that his name always came up in trade rumors, despite the fact that he had, behind the scenes beef with Raja and Rondo, he played his role admirably. You know what I'm trying to say. He played his role well. These dang Negro lips getting away sometimes when I'm trying to articulate. He played his role. He played his role admirably. There it go. There it went. There it go. Still right. But this guy Paul George, nah, man. I don't like this dude, man. I really don't. I've grown to dislike this guy intensely. I remember when Dame Lillard bust that three in his face. First thing this guy said was, that was a bad shot. How the fuck is it a bad shot when it went in to win the series? You know what I'm saying? Like he just always has these excuses with him. Last year in the playoffs, after they blew the 3-1 lead, what did you hear from him? Excuses. It's always excuses with him when he loses. No accountability. He does. He's never holds himself accountable for a bad performance or a loss. I hate people like that. You know what I'm saying? They're always quick to blame other people for when things go wrong. Fuck him. You know what I'm saying? So right now, I can't even stand the Clippers anymore. And it's not that um, I'm like a turncoat, but once I realized like what type of people these motherfuckers are, you know what I'm saying? Like, don't get me wrong, I still respect Kawhi Leonard as a basketball player, but now I'm starting to look at him differently. I'm starting to wonder if he's the type of person I thought he was. You know what I'm saying? Or has he become a bit of a prima donna? You know what I'm saying? I can't stand those type of dudes. But now Paul George doesn't have Russell Westbrook or the anonymity of the Pacers to hide behind now. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to deal with Doc Rivers anymore. Okay. What's the excuse could be next year? Tyronn Lue's not a good coach. It's his coaching. You know what I'm saying? The next time you go 2 for 18, whose fault is that going to be? Well, I'm just, man, I'm shooting too many. I'm not a 3-point shooter, man. I'm not a 3-point shooter, and it's just stressful, man, the way they're using me in the offense, man. Man, shut the fuck up. Stripper, man, simp ass nigga.